Okay, so you and Kat were already talking?
Yeah. We were. We had discovered something new before the phone call.
Mm-hmm. Okay, go ahead and share. What did you find?
We found that, the blood spots on the island, like the side of the island, and over by the Christmas tree, down the hall, dishwasher, those were taken into evidence. Those tests were never run. So we don't have results for those at all.
Those would be the most important ones, I would think.
You would,
some of them.
Yeah, you would think. So this is another thing to write down. And,
right, because those would tell whose blood was in those areas, because being different areas of splatter, it would tell you who was shot in that direction, as opposed to trying to guess who was where.
Because as of right now, the only blood splatter that I am coming across is just Camille's. And the blood that's on the laptop, the iPhone, the notepad is Camille's. We cannot find David's blood and Randy's blood.
Interesting. What about the blood that's on the tissue box? Did they test that too, or is that one of the ones you mentioned?
No, it's not tested. Those items that they didn't test, the BCA lab is holding or decided to keep. I still hope they have them. But they did swab them, and it says right in the paperwork, I have it right here on one of those pages that printed out. They were collected, and the BCA lab. We're not examined at this time. And this is right underneath the same line that says apparent hairs and fibers were collected, but were not examined at this time. And then it says that BCA lab is holding on to it, at least at the time that the report was printed out, which was the June 30th, 2015, at the time that everything was printed out.
Okay.
So, and the ones that they did test for the blood splatters, the footprint, it was only Camille's blood. There was no mixture of Randy or David in those.
How could that be? I keep asking, how could that be?
I don't know. I honestly don't know. I have no explanation for it. I mean, one of the things that I learned, I've been watching DNA lectures like a professor in front of a class doing lectures. And anything that a suspect would touch, any surface, would leave at least 100 skin cells per each fingertip. And that contains DNA. Every skin cell contains DNA. So the wall, if David had did it with his hand and he wasn't wearing gloves, his DNA should be in it. But the only DNA picked up is Camille's. The same thing for the notepad, the laptop, the iPhone, the footprints. The only DNA is Camille's. I'm not saying she did this. You can't shoot yourself in the head 3 times. So unless he wore gloves and magically did it after he was dead.
Which doesn't really make sense, because there are fingerprints. There's fingerprints found on the laptop. There's fingerprints found on the notepad in the room. I believe the hallway looks like a fingerprint, right?
But they weren't able to match those fingerprints.
They weren't able to match him to David, right? Or they?
I think the only one that they were able to match was on the magazine, and that had his DNA. That was the only blood DNA that came back to him.
That was a positive match.
To him, yes. No mixture of Randy or Camille in it. And I
think the other thing is, if it's not a positive match, do they completely rule David out, or are they just saying they don't have enough to put his fingerprint on that item?
If it says concluded, if it says on the test that he's excluded, it means he is absolutely not in that test. Excluded is excluded. That was one of the lectures I listened to.
Well, that would be in a normal situation.
Yeah, exactly. This is not normal.
This is totally abnormal.
So, which prints is David 100% excluded from? Or whatever, 99.99. It's any of them, right? Or
I have the paperwork. I'm just trying to find it. You're talking about his fingerprints at this moment, or his DNA?
Really his DNA, right?
Okay.
Or fingerprint, either or. They got to have
DNA,
something.
His touch DNA was found on the attic bullet. That was just his touch DNA. The other two were ruled out. And I'm looking for it. The knife had a mixture of all three of their DNA. The Clip magazine was 99.99997 dated. It does not match Camille or Randy. They could not be excluded as possible mixtures, but they are not. Wait. That doesn't make sense, because then it says that Rainey estimated could be excluded. See, these tests are not even adding up to what I learned. That is not possible if it says excluded up here or not.
Well, that's the whole thing. They say one thing up top, and then down below, it's even in the autopsy report, like the one for Rania, where it said there's no stippling, soot, blah, blah, blah. Then down below where it says other injuries or whatever, that's where it also says that there was evidence of soot.
It's very, very troubling. It's almost like you have two different people writing it. You have somebody writing the real thing, and then somebody kind of maybe summarizing and taking things or changing things.
Yes.
Yeah.
Out of the 16 DNA tests that were run, only 3 came back as a major profile for David. 2 of them were blood. 1 of them was touch. The rest were Camille, except for 1, and that was Randy's bullet. So the rest all came back to Camille. Now, some of them are a mixture of 2 to more individuals. 7 tests out of 16 came back with a mixture of 2 or more individuals, which they should have run more tests. But, I mean, coulda, woulda, shoulda.
And the two or more. Go ahead, Kat.
Kat, were you going to say something?
No, I just said that's the whole story. Coulda, shoulda, woulda.
Mhm. Yeah.
Did you say there was DNA? All three of their DNA was found on the knife.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's
but not,
DNA from everybody on it,
That
which
It
is
says
strange.
yeah.
Okay. It says 2 or more individuals. David, Kamel, and Rani could not be excluded as possible contributors. And then the next bullet point says Rani estimated 99.995 general population could be excluded from the contributors. So that right there,
Based on their database and whoever is in their database, right? Whatever database they're looking at.
yeah.
Which report are you reading that from? Do you remember if it's is it the big 485 pager?
Yes, I think it's included in the 485 police report,
I'm just
but it's
looking
also
at the 40-page report, the whole
Okay.
analysis.
the BCA lab. Yeah.
That's right. Okay.
And this would be item 8-1 as the result.
8-1?
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Oh, I totally missed it. Okay.
Okay.
And this is for the knife?
Yes.
Okay.
Well, that's interesting. (8.1) 4 areas of item. So on page 10 of the 40 report, 4 areas of item 8, which of 3 samples were collected as items 8.1, 8.2, and 8.3.
Except it looks like only 8.1 was tested.
Mm-hmm.
Why are they collecting stuff and not testing it? Is there
Right.
precedent for that? Is it like, well, we only have, let's just test the big stuff because we already think it's David. Why waste time on all this other stuff, on all these tests if we already have our man?
Yeah, that's
right,
exactly
which would have.
I'm thinking.
No, go ahead, Sophia.
No, I was just agreeing with Greg. That's exactly what I'm thinking, is that they assumed it was a suicide, and that's just what they did.
Well, we all know what happens when we assume.
Oh, yeah.
It's funny you say that, when we assume, because they're it's even listed as presumptive testing.
Mm-hmm.
They're presuming. Yeah, very interesting there.
Well, and a lot of the stuff that they didn't test was actually quite important, as opposed to what they did test.
This makes it seem like they did test this. If you're the way that I'm reading it, right? The presumptive testing indicated the presence of blood on the following. So they had to. So what type of testing did they do to show that there was blood on this? Is that where they take that spray and they spray the blood and it turns blue or bluish green? Maybe that's what they did with all this stuff.
Aluminum?
Well, when they do use that stuff, then they can no longer use that. They can no longer test it another way. Like they can't they can't spray it with the spray and then take a sample to run DNA on. You know what I'm saying?
I was thinking that they were they were using that spray maybe for just for fingerprints, not for anything else. But I don't know.
Right.
Because you can see them put the little marker on it.
Right.
Mm-hmm.
All this stuff is way above way over my head. So I really appreciate you both helping me kind of figure out what the heck is what are we looking at here?
I'm myself here too, trying to figure out their ways.
Mm-hmm.
Google and YouTube are my friends right now.
I never thought I'd hear that one, right?
Well, I mean, I've learned a lot over the past several days. I never thought I would be doing this.
Well, you both have found something else too, right?
Field of expertise.
Yes. Over the weekend, Louise was looking at the photos, trying to correspond them with, or correlating, whatever, I can't think of the word, with the BCA lab reports. And she asked me a question, and I went back and I realized that the 3 bullets that they found on the rug the very first day all came back to Camille. And those had blood and tissue on it, which in her autopsy report, it only says that she was shot twice in the head, nowhere else on the body. But a good portion of her skull is still missing. They were able to put pieces together, and they collected some pieces, but not the entire skull. So the assumption there is that she was shot 3 times in her head. And this is a huge thing because the police report says twice. The coroner's report says twice, but they couldn't figure out which direction the second bullet had gone. And
right, and who's to say the other piece is missing, didn't have the 3rd bullet hole in it.
Mm-hmm. And if the police would have read the test, they would have picked that up. I don't know why the lab techs didn't point this out. Are they not speaking to each other?
Lack of communication is the whole problem here.
Absolutely. And I guess it just, I don't know. I mean, as I said on the page, 1 bullet to the head is murder or suicide. 2 bullets is overkill. 3 bullets is extreme hatred.
Well, that's the thing, though. Both David and Camille's heads are totally missing, per se. I believe that most of it is fragmented all over, that they're not finding because they didn't do a good enough search, or they would have found those other bullet fragments that the cleaning company found.
Which the bullet on the second day, or when the cleaning company came in and rolled up the rug, the bullet that they found was Rainey's. They have yet to find the bullet that killed David.
Right.
So,
because nobody's DNA or blood or tissue or anything was on the one that was in the basement, correct?
Correct.
And then the one that was in the attic only had David's touch DNA on.
Correct.
Right.
And there was, let me see about this.
So we're not coming up with the right amount of shots per person, per cartridges found, per bullet fragments found. Somebody doesn't know how to do math.
I'm still counting the cartridges. I believe 6 were collected, but I need to go back through and actually print out the BCA lab reports one more time to make sure.
Because isn't there a discrepancy of how many bullets were left in the magazine per how many shots were supposedly fired because of the amount of casing versus the amount of fragments?
There was, and it's always been one of the big things. Is two big things that need to be done. Is a detailed report on the blood, and then a detailed report on the bullets, and where all those were found. Because I think there's two magazines in those photos, right?
Right. Mm-hmm. Right.
So, what is the one that was in the the murder weapon, how many were in there. I'll have to go back and see if you can see. I think you can see pretty well.
Are you able to look it up, or?
Yeah, I'm looking up right now.
Okay.
Oh, you're looking, Greg?
Yeah.
Okay, then I won't bother.
The
have
one
all
that has the blood on the magazine, I guess that was the one that was found in the gun.
Right.
That
right.
only it had a mixture of 2 or more individuals. David was ruled out. It does not match Camille or Rainey. The same thing for the gun. A mixture of 2 or more individuals. DNA profile matches David, does not match Camille or Rainey.
When we're talking blood versus DNA, are we talking the same thing? Are we talking 2 separate things? Should we see both blood and DNA for, let's say... Go ahead. I think I got
there's touch DNA where skin cells are just left off. Through your fingers, anywhere, just left off. That's touch DNA. Blood DNA for the areas that were tested, there were several parts of the gun that were tested. I'm trying to find that information. 1A-3 was found. That was the trigger. The slide, the grip, and the muzzle were not tested. They took, I know. 1B was a magazine collected. That was also tested. That came back as David. 4 areas of the knife were tested. The blade, the inside, and the handle. But anyway,
Right, and we could tell that there was no blood on there anyways, so what they got was the touch DNA.
There might be 3 bullets in the magazine, one in the chamber. There's either 2 or 3. That magazine is, it's almost empty. There's nothing in the...
Is it a 12-shot?
Yeah, it is a 12-shot. And you know how you can see the little holes? I can see 12 through 4, and there's nothing there. So there could be 3 or 4 bullets left, if you include the one in the chamber. I just can't get a good shot of the other side of the magazine so I can see exactly how many bullets are in it. It's funny they don't give us that one.
Okay, and I think I remember also, weren't there a couple non-fired bullets just laying on the floor? Or am I imagining that?
I think there was one that wasn't fired.
I think you're right. Yeah. You said on the living room floor?
Yeah.
Okay, I can look at that.
I can't remember what number that corresponded with, though.
Yeah, I apologize. I am not prepared.
No, it's
I
okay.
have the pictures. Let me see. I have.
So
I have
F is the one. I always I always get F because F is the one that goes into the basement. 44 looks interesting, but you can tell it's used. 43. 42, 43, and 44 sound like those are the ones we really need to.
Right.
Those are the ones that you're thinking are the 3 that.
Those are the 3 that came up as just Camille, and those were the ones that were
7.
Underneath.
It was item number 7.
Okay.
So item number 7.
Yeah, I see all the cases. So that's good. Oh yeah, number 7. Yeah, you're right. Item number 7. There it is. BCA image 4767.
If the clip held 12 bullets, 9 of them would have been used if there was 3 left.
Why is this one there? That leads me to guess that they're reloading or something. I don't know. That seems odd.
Living room floor. Cartridge.
Right, especially because the other magazine was still in the safe, correct?
Right. Well, the case was, it was open, but it was still in there. You're right.
The safe was open, but
the safe was open. Right.
Magazine was still inside, correct?
Correct.
Okay, so, yeah, they wouldn't have been able to
on
that.
On that sheet where it shows the diagram of the house and the 57 points, I need to look at that because because then what is it? I'm curious what it says for number 7 under that. Like, what do they label that one as? It says cartridge. It's not a cartridge though, right?
No, it looks like a complete bullet.
Is that maybe that's what they call it? They call it a cartridge, right? Because they have the others as cartridge case. Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Can you see their terminology?
Cartridge and an unspent cartridge, but
right. So the cartridge, I didn't know. Man, I totally missed over that one. Okay.
And that one was never tested.
Look at all the DNA that should be right next to it. There's literally like flesh and hair and all that right next to it. It's like right there. There's no reason not to.
Wonderful.
Oh boy. So they found 7 bullets is what we're looking at. Either or are we now talking about 5 spent, 6 spent? So I think somebody needs to take on that task of just getting all the reports, getting everything on the bullets. I'd be more than happy to do that.
Louise, Kat, and I were going to sit down tomorrow and try to figure out the cartridges versus bullets and everything that were found at the scene. Because we're just trying to figure that out, and a couple other things. I was getting overwhelmed, but tomorrow we're just going to sit down and focus on that.
Okay. I think also...
sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
No, go ahead with yours.
No, I was thinking, I think Laura mentioned something about three shots too. I don't know. So many people say things, sometimes I just store them in the back of my memory and come back to it like today. Like, what the heck?
It's very possible. I mean, it's very possible that she could have found it too.
Yeah.
And didn't you say, Sophia, that the blood on the Koran was never tested?
No, it was never tested.
Was it collected?
Yes.
Okay, well...
Yes. And the pages that were all torn up were collected, but they were never tested.
According to the picture, his hand was laying on top of it, so why it wasn't tested, I'm not sure. Especially because they said that he had blood drip in his fingers. At the autopsy. On his left hand, which is odd because he's not left-handed.
Yeah. Yeah, they didn't even point that out or anything. They didn't point out a lot of those things.
I didn't see anything in any report that ever stated that David was right-handed.
No, it didn't.
But that would have blown their whole theory out of the water anyway.
Well, they would have at least had to do more work, at the very least.
Right.
And for whatever reason, it seems like they wanted to close, to just wrap this up.
And
they didn't know what they were doing.
I don't even know if they even ran gunshot residue tests.
No, I didn't see anything either.
But they didn't find gunpowder, stippling on any of them except maybe Ranny. There was like a spot. But David, for sure, would have been covered in especially his clothing.
Right. They should have done
the
his
sleeves,
hand, his clothing, her head, or Ranya's head, around the area where that mark is, that we're thinking might be the muzzle mark. Especially if they said possibly soot is there. Well, are you guessing? Are you going to test it? Are we just throwing out ideas? I mean, this is kind of important.
Yeah. Well, maybe that was just, maybe they did all this, signed it off, sent it back, and it was up to the cops or somebody else to say, hey, we need more testing, or nope, things are good. Everything's fine. We're seeing a lot of that where it's just like they could have done some handwriting tests. No, they just decided we don't need that at this time.
Yeah, why would you not request it done?
Maybe that's a question we should ask the detective.
Good question.
That is one of the big questions.
Yeah. I'm going to write that down.
Why wasn't gunshot residue test run on his hand if you guys thought that he shot everybody and himself, which would be kind of hard to do with a left hand if you're right-handed?
Right. Now,
clothing.
I'm sorry, what?
Yeah, the clothing makes sense. Yeah, the clothing makes sense. I was going to say, like, well, if the bodies have been sitting there for 3 weeks, like, is there even any point of looking for gunshot residue or any of that stuff? But you said that they found soot on one of them. Soot?
Well, it was on Ranya's head. It was around the area of where the entrance wound was on behind her ear.
They said that they found staining, and the color of the staining. I have the reports right here. Let me grab it, and then I can tell you exactly what it says.
Yeah, I'm going to have to get some ink and print all this out so I can look better, too.
Yeah.
My laptop doesn't like me.
Well, right now my printer's on strike.
Oh, I can understand that. There was a lot of things you wanted it to do.
Yes, exactly. It was like, no, I don't think so.
Too many pages, no.
Rainy. And this would be Rainey's autopsy report.
Yeah, number 7 is that bullet is bothering me now.
Yeah.
It's really bothering me. Where it is also bothering me too, because it's right by Camille.
Right.
Entrance. No evidence of soot, stippling, or unburnt gunpowder particles is on the skin or bones surrounding the wound.
But now go down to page 4 of that.
Green brown discoloration suggested of hemorrhage or possible soot deposition. It was never tested.
Right. But I mean, well, if it's possible, then why don't you test it?
Exactly. Green, brown, red discoloration suggestive of hemorrhage or possible soot.
Well, the green, brown, red discoloration is the decomp.
It still would have shown up in any testing as a metal. But
well, the soot the soot, yeah, it would have. But what I'm saying is that green, brown, red discoloration that they're talking about on their clothes and such. That's all decomposition. Yeah.
Yeah.
Did they find a second gun there? Did they find the other gun, the white? Because I know the wife had a gun too. Didn't they found that one that was registered?
Connell's gun was transferred over to. I have that information.
Yeah, you do.
Because there's only a few
Connell's gun was
possibilities.
transferred over to somebody.
Yes, to David Stark.
Yeah.
It was transferred over the 17th of June, 2012.
I thought that was transferred by David, though.
Yes, it was. But it was Connell's gun.
But she had a gun oh, okay, the serial numbers match her gun.
Yeah. Mm-hmm.
Gotcha.
The one that was registered in her name.
Gotcha. Perfect. Okay.
And Connell couldn't have done this because her DNA is not on the gun.
I was just trying to think if maybe she was, if she had a gun and wasn't able to use it in time. That knife too, I thought the same thing. The knife is kind of weird to have.
Any of them shot each other. It's not.
I agree with
consistent with that type of situation.
Yeah.
Considering that David and Randy were partially mummified and Connell was still bloated. Okay.
Well, and I get where people are thinking that, oh, well, it's because she was fat. No, she wasn't fat.
She was not fat. She was 85 pounds when the body was found. And
right.
She's only 125 before death.
Right.
And she's missing.
Well, she's missing parts of her skull and her hands, yes, but that's not going to account for that much weight.
And you lose mass after death through the
right, because all your fluids start going away, and we all know how decomp works. I don't have to get graphic, but so it's not because of her weight before her death, because she was not overweight. And if you look at the pictures, there are pictures in the documentary that have her heavier, but she had a baby, and everybody has a little weight after they have a baby, but she had lost weight, and you can also tell in the pictures from the birthday party that they showed, and
yeah, you're right.
So it wasn't because she was fatter.
Even her face in the very last picture that David took of her is very slim.
Mm-hmm.
Right.
So, I mean,
they were healthy eaters, so it's not like, they were, they ate burgers, but who's to say that they ate buns,
Yeah.
Maybe they just ate the meat, but, it wasn't because it was cold. Their house was chilly at how the thermostat was set, because I know when it's cold where I live in the wintertime, not those temperatures, but we have cold winters in Nebraska, and if you set the thermostat at 68, it's kind of chilly, and you need to wear a sweater and sweats and socks, and so I can understand their dress that they had on at the time versus the temperature setting on the thermostat. And then you got to also consider the draft coming from the slider. It's not going to be like someone standing there with the door open type thing, but it'll be like drafty windows, which can, depending on if it's windy in that direction or not, it can cool it down a little bit more. But still the time frame of what we're thinking versus their decomposition time frames, things aren't adding up that they all were killed at the same time. And I know everyone's different, and I know their bodies are different, and I know there's going to be some discrepancy in, like, Ranya's feet and her face and hand were mummified versus only David's hand was mummified type situation. But Kamel was in much earlier stages of decomp. And so that's not adding up to they were all killed at the same time.
Now, both of you are positively sure of that, of the decom. In your view, from your view, based on the research you've done, you really think Kamel was in a not why do you say it?
Earlier stage of decom.
Earlier. Thank you.
Yes.
Okay.
I'm not an expert, but just from the research that I've done.
I'm not an expert, and I'm not a medical examiner, but from what I saw of the skin exposed on her versus the other exposed skins, those other skins were in more advanced stages of decomp than she was, and plus she was still quite bloated.
And per the autopsy reports, it even says that David and Rania were
more advanced
had partial
stages.
Right. But every autopsy report.
I think David and Ranya's were done by the same person, and Kamel's was done by somebody else.
Kamel was done by Mitchell Mori. Jessica did. I'm looking for a date.
Because didn't a male do Rania and David, and a female did Kamel? No.
Mitchell.
Yeah,
Jessica.
Mitchell did.
He was on the staff for David and on the staff for Rani, but the pathologist was Jessica. Now for Kamel, it was only Mitchell Mori who was present. Let me find out what
you're right.
does.
There were
Sean,
four of them. Oh, you mean for Kamel?
Yes. Let's see. Yes, for Kamel, Detective Sean McKnight and Brian Bone were present for the autopsy for Kamel, along with Mitchell.
The times are also crucial because I think the daughter her autopsy happens first at 8:30. No, Kamel's is at 8:30. Ranya's is at
8:20.
8:20. Okay, and then I think David's is like a lot later.
His is at 11:50.
Yeah.
Okay, so it only took 10 minutes in between Kamel and Ranya's autopsy, or they're doing
they have two. They have two separate crews, right? No,
okay.
They have Mitchell on both. No, Mitchell's involved on both of them.
I think he was just present when they first started, and then he excused himself to go take care of Kamel.
Gotcha.
From the time, I'm assuming that. Let me look at Rani to see who all was present. Nope. It doesn't say who was in present. It was just...
Well, that's not making sense.
Wait. No. That's for David.
Yeah, for Rania, the pathologist was Jessica Lelinski, and Mitchell was there. It was staff.
I'm trying to see who was all present. I was looking at David's page. Okay. For Rania, McKnight, Bone, Gummert, Booth. The officers that were there for
old Gummert.
Mm-hmm. So,
So we need to look more into the three bullets.
Mm-hmm.
Item number 42, 43, and 44.
Right.
See who they're attached to, if anybody, and
wait, which ones again?
42, 43, and 44.
42, 43, and 44 came back to Camille. Those all came back to Camille. They were collected on the first day from the rug.
Which is what makes you think that she was shot 3 times.
Yes.
Well, because only her DNA was found on.
Is it possible that it could have been found even though she wasn't shot with one of those bullets?
I don't.
But
think
her
so.
DNA or blood could still be on there. Because her blood is everywhere.
As well.
Yeah, her blood is everywhere.
It's everywhere.
Right.
And it comes back to indicating as female matches Camille. Does not match David or Randy.
Okay, I'm just making a note of that.
But then there would be the mixture and who would be excluded or wouldn't be excluded type thing. But the thing was, then why didn't you separate it and find out who is in that mixture?
Mm-hmm.
I know they did the major for all of them, but they didn't do, for all of those things, they didn't do, well, it's David and Camille and not Rania for everything. You know what I'm saying? They did do that on some things, where it says it's a mixture of 2 or more, and then they said it's this one and this one, but not that one type of situation. But that wasn't done with all of the things that come back and said there's a mixture of 2 or more. Correct, Sophia?
Yes.
Okay.
And then if they say, oh, well, Camille and Randy were excluded, and then later on it says, well, can't be excluded. Or some of them will say cannot be excluded, and then later on in the next bullet point it will say, well, this person was 99.95 excluded from being a contributor.
Right.
Wait, what? It can't be both.
Right.
Well, it isn't like they're saying that it's 100%, right? They're very careful.
Well,
because they say 90%. Right.
There's always that slight margin of error for everything, but
now some of
if
the
they're being
DNA
truthful.
testing, and some of the DNA testing, they did low-key testing on it, which all the DNA tests that they did was nuclear DNA.
Right.
And I think mitochondria DNA testing should have been done. It's, from what I read, what I've heard, it is a more definitive test. But I think the easier test was nuclear. And in the low key, if there's 5 people as suspects, those 5 could all very well end up with DNA coming back and saying, okay, all of you could pretty much be the killer. The low key goes in and it pulls out even more information. And then you go through a process of letters and numbers, and you're ruling out exactly who it is. and who it isn't. It is. They did that on some of the tests for,
Right.
like they did it for the Attic bullet, for the touch DNA. They did it in Camille's. I think they did it for Camille. There's a little asterisk that says DNA profiling, and then there's an asterisk, and that asterisk means low-key testing. That actually stands for locate on the chromosome. And it IDs a DNA profile accurately. It separates region, ethnicity, country. And so it's getting down to the nitty-gritty, but the fact that they did it on some and not others.
Right.
It gets only more confusing to explain. Because I actually had to look that up. Item 38 was also done, which was the push key, which was touch DNA. And that's how I came to the conclusion that it was touch DNA, is because they did that.
So on the BCA lab report, the 40-page one, it looks like around page 22. Page 22, you start to see what they submit for testing.
Right.
Right? Submitted to the laboratory. So number 49, 50 through 53, 54 through 56. Okay. So I see the nuclear DNA.
Mm-hmm. Do you
1
see
through
on
45.
that paper?
Mm-hmm.
There is a thing that says on that paperwork, at the top it says page 1 of 3. 1 of 3 pages. And it says that, is this a new case? No. If no, additional items be submitted. Oh, wait, no, I'm on the wrong.
Oh, that one where like a checklist?
Yes, it's page 2 of 3, right, the one after that. It says DNA cases, known DNA samples from all recipient, or all principals, excuse me. And it says yes. And in the next box it says no.
That's page 6 of 40. Okay. I'm with you. Yes and no.
Okay. What does that mean?
That depends on what your definition of is. Some Bill Clinton speak right there. There you go. Wow.
I'm like, oh my gosh.
DNA cases. Known DNA samples from all principals? Yes.
Mm-hmm.
No.
And no.
Yes and no. Okay.
They collected a lot of samples and they ran 16 tests.
From all principals. I guess it depends on what their definition of principal is.
Yeah.
No, I don't know. I have no idea. I'm trying to give them the benefit of the doubt, but come on. Elimination principles has all 30.
I think we tried to do that. Got us.
I guess that was CYA? I don't know.
It could be. It could damn well be. Somebody might have went in there and said no, or somebody else went in and said yes, or the other way around.
You would think that maybe whiteout would have been used.
Oh my goodness. I'm so glad you pointed that out. Everybody go check out page 6 of 40 on the BCA lab reports here.
Well, I had noticed that too along the way, and I thought, oh, well, maybe I'm not understanding what they were talking about.
That was actually pointed out by another member to me, who I was talking privately with. She wants to remain anonymous. She doesn't want a lot of attention, so I decided that I would not mention her, but
Not wrong with that.
She pointed it out, and so did Kat. And then I went back and I looked, and I was like, oh my gosh. I was mainly focusing on the results and matching them up. I didn't really read in between.
Well, I had seen it when the report first got posted, like I said, and I was skimming through it, and I saw that, and I was just like, oh, well, maybe I'm not reading it right. And then I didn't look back at it for a couple days, and then it slipped my mind, of course, until you just brought it up. So, yeah, I remember seeing that, too.
Yeah.
I wonder if some of the stuff on these reports, if it warrants reaching out to the BCA lab, to the people that created this, and just saying, hey, what do you guys mean by this? What do you mean by that? Can you explain this, please?
Yeah, well,
there would be a lot of explaining that had to be done there.
Yeah.
Why would you do this test but not that test? Why would you do this and not that?
Well, and it's all about maybe how we say it, right?
Right.
Do you think that they would even talk to us? I mean,
yeah, I do.
I'm just wondering if legally, if they're allowed to.
Who knows who has a gag order,
Yeah, they might, but it's been three years now,
Right.
I'm thinking, Greg, this is stuff that you should bring up to the family.
Yeah, you're right.
Because if these are being red flagged by us, I'm hoping that it would be enough, just the lab results and what they tested, what they didn't test. That's a huge thing because they don't have the whole story.
Right. No, yeah, and it sounds like they were kept in the dark for a lot of this stuff. And it was more about getting the family to focus on us than to focus on what the police were actually doing and what their theory was.
Oh, it's a shiny object. Don't look this way.
Yeah. So maybe we can create something for them. Let's work on creating, something we can give to them that makes it easy for them to see, hey, look, these are all the reasons, these are all the things you should really think about following up on. And they just might do it.
And I really want to be clear. I do not believe that Camille did this.
No.
I do not believe that David did this. Camille could not shoot herself in the back of the head more than once. I mean, back of the head possibly once, not twice, and definitely not 3 times. So she is ruled out. She could not have done this.
Especially with no hands.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, I know people are tricky, but come on.
Yeah, and David, by his autopsy report and the lack of DNA in the rest of the crime scene, the lack of DNA, he couldn't have done this. So who did? And we need to find out for this family.
Amen. I think that's a great place to wrap this up. Unless you have anyone has any closing comments that you wanna make, definitely want to get you both back on here.
I'm good with wrapping it up for now. I'm going to work with Sophia on those things that we had mentioned earlier, and if you needed me to work on something else, just message me and let me know. I'll have a few days off of work. Unfortunately, my patient was hospitalized this morning, so I get a couple days off.
Okay. Well, yeah. If we can work on creating something, let's work on creating a document or something that we can give to the family. To just show them these are things they should at least follow up on. They might be able to help answer some of these questions if there is a logical reason for them.
thinking they would give the family the answer and not us, or just showing the family that, hey, there's reasonable doubt here?
Yes, just showing the family there is reasonable doubt,
Okay.
and I think that might prompt them to think about, getting the case reopened.
Right. Right, because I'm not out to say, hey, so-and-so did this, so-and-so did that.
Right.
Right now,
We're not doing that.
These people were murdered, and this is how we think so. Or this is why we think so, not David shot them all.
Absolutely.
Yeah, to just poke holes in the theory. Go ahead, Sophia.
Right.
No, we're not pointing the finger at anybody.
Right, we're just trying to
find
say
justice for this family. That's all we want to do. We don't want to point fingers. We just want to have the case reopened. We want detective work and lab tests to be rerun.
Sounds fair to me. All right, ladies. I'm going to stop this recording here.
Okay.